What's more dangerous than one person making a bad decision? Millions making the same bad decision together. Welcome to the strange world of collective stupidity, where groups of intelligent people somehow make incredibly dumb choices. The 2008 housing crisis that almost no one saw coming. Dutch Tulip Mania, where single flowers sold for the price of houses. The GameStop stock frenzy, where amateur investors bet life savings. These weren't just random accidents. They're examples of a fascinating psychological phenomenon that's hardwired into our brains. Today, we're diving deep into why crowds lose their minds, how your brain is wired to follow them, and most importantly, how to protect yourself from becoming part of the herd when the stampede heads toward a cliff. Let's start with the science behind why smart people make dumb decisions in groups. Part 1. The science of crowd madness. Did you know your brain has a built-in copy button that overrides your rational thinking? Neuroimaging studies reveal something shocking. When we're part of a group making decisions, neural activity in our risk assessment regions drops by a staggering 63%. Here's what happens. Your amygdala, the fear center, lights up when you see others reacting emotionally. This triggers your basal ganglia to prioritize imitation over innovation. Meanwhile, your prefrontal cortex, the rational, analytical part, gets suppressed. Evolutionary psychologists call this the cognitive energy conservation social feedback loop. That's a fancy way of saying thinking is hard, copying is easy. This made perfect sense for our ancestors. If everyone suddenly started running, the person who stopped to analyze the situation probably got eaten by the lion. Our brains evolved in small groups of 50 to 150 people, where rapid social imitation was a survival advantage. The problem? We're using Stone Age brains in a digital age world. Today, we're connected to billions of people through screens. Our ancient copying mechanism now operates at a global scale, creating feedback loops of unprecedented power. The result is what scientists call preferential attachment stupidity, where influential people can trigger cascades of poor decisions through entire populations. Professor Mark Pagel from the University of Reading explains it like this. Human social learning is so efficient that we will copy others even when it makes no sense to do so. But if our brains are wired to copy others in emergencies, why does collective stupidity happen in situations where we have plenty of time to think? To understand that, let's look at some of history's most infamous examples of crowd madness. Part 2. Historical case studies. In 1720, Isaac Newton, arguably the smartest person alive, lost today's equivalent of $4.2 million in a stock market bubble called the South Sea Company. His response? I can calculate the motion of heavenly bodies, but not the madness of people. Let's break down what happened. The South Sea Company convinced investors they'd make fortune trading with South America. The stock price rose 800% in just 6 months. Newton, like most people, initially sold his shares for a 100% profit. But then he watched as others got richer. The powerful social proof, seeing friends make money, overrode his mathematical genius. He bought back in at the peak, just before it all collapsed. This pattern repeats consistently across history. Initial rational investment based on reasonable expectations. Price increases creating social validation. Fear of missing out, attracting more investors. Disconnect from underlying value. Collapse when reality catches up. In the 1630s, Dutch Tulip Mania, single tulip bulbs sold for more than houses before the market imploded. Fast forward to 2008. Despite warnings from economists, millions believed housing prices could only go up. Banks, rating agencies, and homebuyers all participated in collective delusion. And in 2021, we saw it again with GameStop and meme stocks, where social media communities drove stock prices to irrational heights, disconnected from business fundamentals. These aren't just financial phenomena. Collective stupidity shapes everything from politics to fashion to how we evaluate information online. And in today's digital world, this ancient brain bug has found the perfect breeding ground. Digital amplifiers. What happens when you combine our copy-prone brains with algorithms designed to maximize engagement? A perfect storm of collective irrationality. Social media platforms aren't neutral. They're designed to maximize time spent and engagement. The most effective way to do that, show people content that triggers strong emotions, especially outrage, fear, and tribalism, emotions that shut down our critical thinking. A 2022 MIT study revealed something alarming. Groups making decisions through social media interfaces show a 47% increase in error rates compared to groups working face-to-face, even when given identical information. This creates what researchers call digital lemming effects. Like the mythical lemmings that supposedly follow each other off cliffs, we're led toward increasingly extreme versions of our existing beliefs. We saw this dramatically in 2023, when TikTok became flooded with amateur financial advisors. Some 17-year-olds with no financial qualifications gained millions of followers, offering investment advice. According to a Wall Street Journal investigation, this triggered approximately $2.3 billion in risky options trading by inexperienced investors. Or consider viral challenges, from the relatively harmless Ice Bucket Challenge to dangerous ones like the Tide Pod Challenge or the Blackout Challenge. These spread precisely because our brains are wired to imitate what we see others doing, especially when it comes with social validation. The technical term for this is algorithmic conformity engines. These systems don't just reflect collective stupidity, they actively manufacture it by connecting people who reinforce each other's worst instincts. But not all groups make bad decisions. Some harness collective wisdom instead of collective stupidity. What's the difference? Part 4, Wisdom's the stupidity of crowds. When does a crowd become brilliant instead of brainless? It all comes down to 3 crucial factors identified by James Surowiecki in his landmark book, The Wisdom of Crowds. Diversity of opinion. Each person should have private information or interpretation. Independence. People's opinions aren't determined by others. Decentralization. People can specialize and draw on local knowledge. When these conditions exist, groups can make astonishingly accurate judgments. For example, in the classic jelly bean experiment, if you ask 100 random people to guess how many jelly beans are in a jar, individually, they'll be all over the place. But average their guesses together, you'll get remarkably close to the exact number, often within 1 to 2% of the actual count. This is why prediction markets often outperform individual experts. When diverse people with different information make independent bets with real consequences, their collective judgment becomes impressively accurate. But contrast this with social media discussions, where algorithms promote similar opinions, removing diversity. People see what others think before forming their own opinions, destroying independence. Viral dynamics reward conformity over accuracy, damaging decentralization. Network scientists have identified something called preferential attachment stupidity, where influential nodes, thought leaders or celebrities, can paradoxically decrease group IQ through confirmation bias cascades. The key to wisdom is not what you know, but how you structure what you don't know. Warren Buffett. This brings us to the most important question. How do you stay smart when everyone around you is losing their minds? Part 5, Mental Immunity Toolkit. Here are 3 science-backed techniques to build your immunity against collective stupidity, even when you're surrounded by it. First, the cognitive vaccine technique. Just as vaccines work by exposing your body to a weakened version of a virus, you can inoculate your mind against bad thinking by deliberately exposing yourself to opposing viewpoints. Try this. For any strong belief you hold, spend 15 minutes earnestly searching for the strongest arguments against your position. Research shows this simple practice reduces susceptibility to group polarization by 40%. Second, the decision delay protocol. During periods of high social excitement, whether it's a stock market frenzy or viral outrage, implement a mandatory 72-hour waiting period before making any significant decision. Neuroscience research shows that creating this temporal distance allows your prefrontal cortex to regain control from your emotional amygdala hijack. Third, practice network diversity. Audit your information diet. Do you get news from multiple sources with different perspectives? How many people do you regularly talk to who fundamentally disagree with you? Are your social media feeds diverse or homogeneous? Studies show that exposure to viewpoint diversity increases critical thinking by up to 28% and improves decision quality, especially in complex situations. These techniques literally rewire your neural pathways, strengthening the connections between your emotional brain and your rational brain, making you more resistant to collective contagion. What examples of collective stupidity have you witnessed or escaped? Let me know in the comments below.